Here in this valley we call Rossmoor, over 200 years ago lived the Saklan Indians. Won't you join me, John Nutley, as we explore their lives and times? We have a street name for them. The Saklans were a small part of a larger linguistic family called the Miwoks. The Saklans were divided into several tribelets scattered in the Moraga, Lafayette, Tice Valley area. Their villages usually consisted of 60 to 80 people in 8 to 10 huts, just the right size to maintain a balance between the old and the young, the men and the women, hunters and gatherers, so that none need work too hard or be without support in time of need. The Miwok linguistic group was divided into several branches. In Marin were the Coast Miwoks. The Bay Miwoks, to which the Saklans belong, extended along Suisun Bay. The Plain Miwoks extended across the Great Valley to the Sierra Nevadas. And the Mountain Miwoks extended from Moqualamy River to below Yosemite Valley. They are so identified by their changes of diet and lifestyle. Our Saklan Indians maintain their village close to the spring that emerged near the entrance to the valley. This spring flowed all year round and was essential for the existence of the community. The creeks that we see today in Rossmoor did not flow all year round in the earlier days. The valley was quite different then than it is now. The housing terraces in which we live, with their trees and green lawns, did not exist. The Indians enjoyed a broad, U-shaped valley about half a mile wide and 2 miles long. It was a vast meadowland divided by 2 creeks. One began beyond the southern end of Horseman's Canyon and wandered through the valley to pass on the east side of Gateway Clubhouse. The other creek began in the upper Stanley Dollar area and ran down the valley on the west side of Gateway Clubhouse. Here the 2 creeks joined a third that had descended from the Oakmont area and then passed out of the valley near the entry gate. From the Sportsman's Park area near Hillside Clubhouse, a creek ran down Golden Rain Road and then divided the Delvalle parking lot from the clubhouse before joining Tice Creek opposite the sales office. None of these creeks ran throughout the year, but their seepage contributed to the spring that served the Indians. The land features have been changed in this area by the various white settlers, and particularly with the construction of the Delvalle High School in 1957. Near the spring can still be seen the remnants of the mortar rocks. Here the Saklan women came to grind the acorns into meal, preparatory to making the mush or gruel that was their staple food. When the new road was built into the valley for Rossmoor, the graves of the Indians were uncovered. A team of archaeologists from the University of California did a complete dig of the area. It was they who exposed the artifacts that help us know more about the Saklan Indians. Bones, beads, and arrowheads are on display upstairs in the Dollar Clubhouse. During the reshaping of the land for residential buildings, the extra dirt was used to raise the road level and create the parking lot that now serves St. Anne's Church. The Saklan Indians lived a relaxed lifestyle. There was little need for farming. Mother Nature each year supplied a new crop of acorns, and the grassy meadows presented a variety of seeds for a change of taste. The women would inspect the oak trees and gather the acorns, which were tossed over their backs into a cone-shaped basket, held in place with a woven head strap. The acorns were inspected at the end of each gathering and then stored in granaries held up by sticks to protect them from vandalism by woodpeckers and squirrels. The children were sent scurrying to catch lizards, salamanders, and insects for a protein supplement. They also hunted for quail eggs hidden in the tall grasses or beneath the shrubs along the creek. The Indian women taught their daughters to recognize herbal and medicinal plants and where to find the soap roots. The men were the hunters and defenders of the village. With bows and arrows, they hunted deer, foxes, squirrel, and other small game. Bears were avoided. Traps were set for rabbits, quail, and the like. The men spent much time in making bows and arrows. The arrowheads were fashioned from obsidian or volcanic glass. Willow branches were used for the shafts. Basket making was a necessary skill for a girl seeking to wed. All California Indians were excellent basket makers. As they did not have pottery, baskets served for almost every conceivable purpose. They were used for gathering, cooking, and storing. Baskets served as hats, sleeping mats, and covers. Their huts were baskets turned upside down. They formed fish nets, belts, and head straps. If a storage container was needed for any purpose, a basket was created to solve the problem. Probably the most trying effort of the women was the daily preparation of acorn mush or pinole. Acorns were inspected, the shells were cracked and the meat removed. Then the meat was ground into meal on the mortar rocks. One can see the indentations made by repeated use. A basket shaped like a funnel was used to keep the meal from flying out of the mortar. When a sufficient supply was ground, it was taken down to the creek, and there a shallow dish was formed in the sand. Here the meal was spread out, then warm water was slowly poured over the meal to bleach out the tannic acid. It would take many applications to purify the meal. The women could prepare the meal in several ways, as a soupy gruel, as a mush, or as a cake. The most common way was as a gruel. Water was added to acorn meal in a deep basket. Herbs and any meat that was available were mixed in. Then a hot rock was added and constantly stirred to keep it from burning through the basket. As the rock cooled, it was removed and a heated one was added until the desired result was achieved. Plate-like baskets and bowls were used, as were fingers and carved spoons by the family members. The Indians wore few clothes. Weaving was not a skill they had mastered. They did know how to tan skins. Women wore deerskin aprons with the bib to the rear as a seat cushion. It was necessary when pounding acorns or leaching the meal. At the front of the apron, a series of reed panels gave a decorative flair to their costume. The upper body was bare except for necklaces and tattoos about the neck and chin. The marks were used to identify tribes. Men and children wore no clothing except on special festive occasions. In the summer, this was fine, but in the winter, mud was coated on the body to give a certain amount of protection from the cold. Some adults even acquired enough rabbit skins to create a cape. The most common solution to the cold was to stay in the hut and watch the warming fire. Judging from the bones found by the archaeologists, we estimate that the Indians came to Tice Valley about 1500. They were still there when the first Spanish explorers arrived in Walnut Creek area in 1772. The Indians knew they were coming. The Ohlone Indians, who lived along the eastern shore of San Francisco Bay, passed on the information about the strange bearded men with their colorful costumes and shining armor. The unknown animals they brought with them must have intrigued the Indians. The Saklans were curious and yet apprehensive, eager to see the strangers. When they saw the soldiers and the unusual animals, they were fearful. They decided that they did not want to be too friendly with the foreigners. Later, when an invitation was received to come to the mission, the Saklans were slow to respond. But that's another story. In 2004, plans were underway to enlarge the retention basin outside the gates of Rossmoor. This basin is used to control the flow of Tice Creek during the rainy season. It thereby protects homes downstream, particularly in the Meadow Road area. As there exists an Indian burial site in the area, it was necessary to have a cultural expert on site during the work. Andrew Galvin, the noted expert on Bay Area natives whose ancestors were Miwoks, was in charge. During the work, at least 2 Indian remains were uncovered. They were set aside and protected while the work of the excavation continued. In the deepening of the basin, ashes and burnt fused soil was uncovered at the level that suggested that humans had lived in the area 2,000 years ago. No human remains were uncovered. On the completion of the excavation of the basin, the native remains were reinterred in an appropriate manner. Concrete slabs were placed over the remains. If, in some distant future, man were to dig in the area, the concrete slabs would tell them to be careful. Then the whole area was landscaped again to hide the remains, so that today the basin area shows no sign of the Native Americans that rest in peace in their homeland.